Hello, dear viewers. Welcome to our channel, Korea from Inside. Today, we invite you to explore something truly special with us, a deeply emotional and beautiful piece, You and I, the song that brings tears to your eyes, from Lee Min Ho and Kim Go Eun. It's a heartfelt melody that touches the soul. Dive into it together, right now. In a world where love stories are often played out under the blinding lights of fame and public curiosity, there's remained a quiet symphony, composed far from the noise. For 4 years, Lee and Kim Go Eun nurtured a relationship that was defined not by grand gestures or dramatic declarations, but by the silent strength of genuine affection. Recently, under the soft shimmer of twilight and away from the ever-present gaze of cameras, something deeply personal unfolded, a moment that revealed the tender depth of a love long kept private. Lee, known widely for his charismatic performances and undeniable star power, stripped away the layers of his public persona to become something far simpler, and infinitely more meaningful, a man deeply in love. After years of discretion and privacy, he chose to open his heart, not with a speech or a press release, but through the purest language he knew, music. In a quiet, intimate gathering, he took hold of a microphone and began to sing You and I, a song that had always held special significance to him. But this was more than a mere performance, it was a revelation, a declaration, a love letter wrapped in melody. Each verse he sang carried echoes of their shared past, the quiet moments, the long waits, the strength it took to love someone without seeking validation from the outside world. Every note told a story, of loyalty that never wavered, of sacrifices made in silence, of trust that had been tested but never broken. Kim sat quietly, listening, the emotions on her face revealed the depth of their shared journey. Her eyes shimmered not just with tears but with understanding, the kind that comes from years of standing by someone's side through life's unpredictable tides. While others speculated, invented headlines, and imagined their own versions of the truth, Lee and Kim lived their story in the spaces between words, in looks, in patience, in enduring presence. The lyrics of You and I speak of a bond that doesn't require fanfare or validation. It's about two people walking side by side, weathering storms, embracing joy, and creating a world where their love alone is enough. For Lee, this song was more than nostalgic, it was symbolic. It captured everything he wanted to say but never did until now. Throughout the song, his gaze never left her. His eyes, full of emotion. It clear that every lyric was directed at Kim, that every word was meant for her and her alone. For the first time in their long, quiet love story, they weren't just together, they were seen, fully and without barriers. This wasn't an act for the public. No reporters, no red carpet, no staged moments, just two people, a song, and years of unspoken love finally finding its voice. In that fleeting, beautiful moment, Lee wasn't the man on posters or screens. He wasn't the star adored by millions. He was just someone in love, expressing it in the way he knew best, with his voice, his sincerity, and the song that had been theirs all along. It was a serenade meant not for the world, but for one person, a melody crafted by time, trials, and tenderness. In the realm of You and I, the only ones who ever mattered were Lee and Kim, and in that quiet space, love found its loudest echo. As the final notes of You and I faded into the stillness of the evening, a hush lingered, not of silence, but of understanding. It was the kind of stillness that follows something sacred. The song, gentle yet piercing, had carved open memories they had never spoken aloud and emotions too deep for words. The melody wasn't complicated, but it carried weight. It held the essence of promises never broken. Hands held through dark nights, of whispered reassurances that were more real than any public vow. It was soft, like the way he looked at her when no one was watching. It was steady, like the way she waited, year after year, never asking for more than what he could give. In every note, there was a vulnerability that few had ever seen in Mr. Lee. The strength in his voice trembled ever so slightly, not from weakness, but from the overwhelming truth of what he was sharing. This was not a performance for applause. It was a confession in the only language he trusted more than words, music. And Kim felt every word. Eyes shimmered, but she didn't cry, not because she wasn't moved. Because the song didn't ask for tears. It asked for presence. For her to simply be there, listening, understanding, remembering. And she did. She remembered the quiet dinners after long days, the silence that never felt empty, the way he would reach for her hand under the table when no one was looking. She remembered how love with him had always been quiet, but never small. The lyrics of You and I speak not just of being together, but of choosing each other every day, of love not as a fleeting feeling, but as a decision, a steady, unwavering choice. The song doesn't promise fireworks. It promises warmth. Promises love that stands not because it is seen, but because it is felt. As the last chord lingered in the air, Kim slowly reached out her hand to his, not in a dramatic gesture, but in quiet affirmation. She didn't need to say anything. The song had already said everything. And in that touch, so simple and so profound, was a world of emotion, gratitude, relief, love, and perhaps most powerfully, peace. Peace in finally being known. Peace in being loved out loud. Even if only between the two of them. Peace in knowing that after all these years, after all the hiding, all the waiting, all the quiet, they were still you and I. Sometimes, that is more than enough. And then, as if the universe paused to listen, You and I reached its final chorus. Lee's voice, once slow and tender, now soared, no longer restrained, no longer cautious. With each breath, he poured his soul into the melody, letting go of every fear, every hesitation that had once held him back. His heart was no longer behind a wall. It was in the open, trembling, raw, and beautiful. The intimacy of the moment didn't quiet the power of the song, it amplified it. The small room couldn't contain the weight of his voice anymore. It echoed with every silent I love you he had never spoken aloud. The lyrics, once sweet and melancholic, now took on a force of their own. They became a cry, a vow, a promise echoing into the space between them. We don't need the world to see us. As long as you're with me, I'm home. He wasn't just singing You and I. He was living it, right there, in front of her. And in that crescendo, something changed. Go on, who had always loved quietly, who had stood in the background with grace and patience, saw him in a light she had never seen before. Not as the actor admired by millions, not as the man she had quietly stood beside, but as the man who now, fearlessly and openly, chose her. The room felt charged, almost electric, yet sacred. His voice cracked slightly on the final note, but it was that imperfection that made it human. Made it unforgettable. Because this wasn't flawless. It wasn't polished. It was real. And the audience, though small, perhaps just her, felt every pulse of it. When the song ended, there was no applause. There didn't need to be. The silence that followed was thunderous. It was the silence that follows truth. Lee stood there for a moment, eyes still locked on hers, breath uneven, as if the confession had taken everything out of him. But in its place, there was lightness. Relief. Freedom. He had given her his truth, wrapped in melody. And she had accepted it, not with words. The eyes that said, I've always known. In that instant, he wasn't just a singer. He wasn't just a man in love. He was both, merged in one transcendent moment. A storyteller of the deepest kind. Using not a script, but a song, not a stage, but the space between two hearts finally meeting without walls. You and I? It was no longer just their favorite song. It had become their story. Their anthem. Their turning point. And as the final notes of You and I melted into silence, something more powerful than applause filled the room. Tears, smiles, and the quiet ache of hearts being moved. Go-Un gently rose from her seat, eyes brimming with emotion. She didn't speak, she didn't need to. The way she walked toward him, the way her hand found his, trembling but certain, said everything. Two souls, long hidden in shadows, were now standing in the light. This wasn't just a song, it was a closing of a chapter and the beginning of something new, a love no longer whispered, but sung. Love that had endured storms, grown in silence, and now bloomed, finally, without fear. For those who had quietly followed them, who had believed in love even when it was unseen, this moment was for you too. Mr. Lee turned to the small gathering of friends and close companions who had witnessed it all, and finally, silence that now softly captured his voice. He spoke, his voice still carrying the weight of the song. Now filled with gratitude. To those who have watched, waited, and loved us from afar, thank you. To those who believed in quiet love, in sincerity, In truth, this song was for you too. You reminded us that even the quietest stories can be the most powerful. And to everyone who has walked this journey with us, in silence or in song, from the bottom of our hearts, thank you for believing in you and I. His voice broke a little on those last words, and Go-un, standing by his side, squeezed his hand. They stood together, no longer hiding, no longer pretending. And for a moment, everyone watching felt it, the depth, the love, the truth. The screen faded gently to black, the soft echo of you and I playing once more in the background, not as a performance, but as a memory, a promise, and a gift. And before the final frame disappeared, a message appeared in white letters. Thank you for loving quietly. Thank you for believing in love that waits. Thank you for being part of our story. With all our hearts, Lee and